The bells started ringing while our men were still screaming. It was the second battle, before anyone knew they would call it that. Rain across the Leary Valley, low clouds snagging on the hill, German machine guns cutting up the slopes above Cassino. We were pinned in a vineyard by the railway line north of the town, faces in the mud, helmets rattling under mortar bursts, and somewhere above all that, up in the cloud where the monastery sat on its rock, the bells began to toll. They were not fast, not panicked, slow, 4 strokes, then a pause, 4 strokes again. Funeral bells, the way they rang them back home in Tarnot, when a man went into the ground. I remember the smell of smashed vines and cordite, the way the ground jumped under my ribs, and under all of it, that heavy sound rolling down through the mist. Who ordered that? Salivsky spat mud and tried to lift his head. You hear that, Yannick? I hear it, I said, though my teeth were clenched. I could feel each note in my fillings. I glanced at him. His hands were locked around his rifle, knuckles white, the same hands that had once cut coal out of Silesian rock. Maybe it's a signal. Signal, my ass, he muttered. That's Juan Gowobny. Somebody's already dead. The section leader, Sergeant Pyotr Novak, flattened in the ditch beside us, turned his head and snarled, "Shut it, both of you. Keep your helmets down." Another mortar shell came in, closer. It hit somewhere by the track, and the concussion punched soil into our faces. Someone screamed, high and animal. I smelled blood, copper, and warm. The bells did not change. 4 strokes. Pause. For more. Sergeant, Leon Mazur's voice trembled from the other side of the ditch. He was our radio man, lenses always sliding down his nose. They said the tower was hit. In February, the Yanks flattened the monastery. There shouldn't be bells. Then you're not hearing them, Novak said. His eyes were closed. His hand was inside his tunic, fingers wrapped around the little wooden rosary his mother had given him before Siberia, before Anders, before the desert. He was mouthing something I couldn't hear over the bursts. You're hearing your nerves. The bells kept tolling, slow, heavy, perfectly clear between each impact. 2 minutes later, when the stretcher-bearers dragged what was left of Corporal Stoshek from the gap in the wire, one arm hanging backward, mouth open around a clump of mud, the bells stopped in the middle of a stroke and never finished it. We did not forget that. I was 23 then. Rifleman, 3rd Carpathian Rifles, 2 Polish corps, under the British 8th Army. We were the men who had marched from the Gulag, through Persia and Palestine and the Italian. Dust to die under a ruined Benedictine abbey we had never seen. We had been at the line near Cassino for a week when the bells rang for the first time. Before that, they were only a rumor, a joke at first. The first time I heard about them was in a drafty building that had once been a wine warehouse, now a casualty clearing station and command post. We'd come in from a wiring party after midnight, boots sucking in the mud, wool soaked, and were queuing for watery tea. The place smelled of iodine, cigarettes, and wet greatcoats. Somewhere behind a curtain, a man was coughing his lungs out. An Indian sepoy sat on an ammunition crate near the wall, turban shadowed, his Leonfield across his knees. The badges on his shoulder marked him from the 4th Indian Division. He looked at our badges, the Polish eagles, and smiled without teeth. "Monte Cassino," he said, in careful English. "You go up there soon, Polish." "Rumor says so," Novak answered. He had a good ear for languages after so many borders. "Maybe you warmed it for us, Sahib." The Indian laughed in a low, tired way. "We warmed it. They cooled us. You can have it." He tapped ash into a helmet on the floor. "You hear their bells yet?" Leon blinked. "Bells." He nodded toward the invisible height above the town. "The monastery, abbey. Before the big bombing in February, the monks ring bells. Old bells. Very beautiful, they say. The Americans drop many bombs. We watch from here. Abbey breaks like bread. After that, no bells." His dark eyes glinted. "Then the dead start coming up the hill, and the bells begin again. Dead Zalewski snorted. You mean the Germans? No, the sepoy said quietly. I mean the dead. We open a cupboard in a ruined house to take sugar. There is a man inside, wearing German boots, Indian jacket, Polish rosary. No face. He is sitting up, but he is dead for many days. We know his name from the tag. He tapped his chest where his identity disc hung. We hear the bells the night before we open that cupboard. 4 strokes. 4. 4. Like someone hammering iron slowly into the sky. Novak rolled his eyes. We've all seen odd things, he said. Shell shock, fog, wine. You mix those and you'll see your grandmother dancing in nothing but her apron. The Indian raised his hand, palm out in the Hindu way. You ask the Kiwis, he said. You ask the Gurkhas. The bells ring when a man is already dead but does not know it yet. He smiled again, bitter. I am glad we are going to the Adriatic Sangro, maybe. Let the bells ring for someone else. Later that night, in the ruined farmhouse we used as a billet, Leon wrote it down in his little notebook. He always wrote everything down. Names of villages, units that passed, new swear words from each language. Campen de Morti, he muttered, squinting in the glow of a candle stub. That's what the Italians call them, I heard one say. Death bells. You and your lists. Wojtek Zalewski grumbled, rolling onto his side on the straw. You'll have no space left to write when you finally meet a woman again. Leon smiled. I make space, he said, and tore out the first page. It was full of scribbles from Persia, names of men we hadn't seen since Tobruk. The paper crackled like dry leaves. He crumpled it in his fist. Old ghosts for new ones. We laughed then. None of us slept much, but we laughed. The monastery itself we only saw in flashes. Cloud and smoke wrapped it most days. A shape on a shape. White ruined walls on a dark rock, shaped like a ship's prow. The Germans watched us from somewhere up there. Through binoculars and rangefinders, and maybe through whatever saints had once stared down from those cloisters. The Italians in the valley knew more about it than we did. One afternoon, before the bells, I was sent with Novak and Leon to fetch some crates from a little village to the south of the railway, along a road lined with broken poplars. The village had hardly a house standing with a roof, but there were people there. Women with scarves, old men with faces like walnuts. We loaded the crate-tinned meat and mortar rounds onto a mule cart, and while we tightened the straps, an old man with a black cap and a faded gray suit shuffled toward us. He carried a rosary wrapped twice around his wrist, wooden beads worn smooth. You are Polaki, he said, his Italian slow and careful, so we might understand. From the east. Catholic, Catholic. Yes, Novak replied, nodding. We're going to take your monastery back, Nano. The old man smiled without humor. His remaining teeth were the color of old bone. It is not my monastery, he said. It belongs to San Benedetto. Before him, it belonged to Apollo. Before him to the stones. He jerked his chin toward the heights. The monastery was invisible in cloud, but we could feel it above us. The bells are older than the war. We heard they were destroyed, Leon said, bombed. The man made a small gesture with his rosary, like he was crossing himself, and then thought better of it. The metal is broken, he said, smashed into many pieces, but the sound stays. The sound is not metal. He looked straight at me, his eyes sharp under the wrinkled lids. They ring when a man's name is taken from the book of the living and written in the other one. Novak frowned. What book? The old man shook his head. The monks kept a book, he said. Names of the dead. Prayers to remember them. Bombs burned the papers. The Germans burned more. The names are in the stones now. He tapped his temple with one crooked finger. The bells, remember. They ring when the last thought of a man is finished. When he has no more tomorrow. That's superstition, Novak said. Yes, the old man agreed, without offense. Everything old is superstition to young soldiers, until you are older. He turned away, shuffling back to his broken doorway. As he went, he said, more to himself than to us, They rang when the monks left. They rang when the Germans dug in. They rang when the first Indian boy bled in the street. They will ring for you too. On the way back, Leon walked in silence, the mule's hooves clopping. He had his notebook out, scribbling. I saw him write. Bell spoke of Dead in the Stones. Going to make a story. I asked him. He shrugged. Maybe I write it all down, he said. So if I die here, someone knows what we saw. Maybe no one will believe it. They'll believe the graves, WWII said. We reached the front-line positions again just before dusk. The slopes above Casino were black silhouettes, then gone as the cloud came down. Flares went up somewhere beyond the town, white flowers in a gray sky. The monastery did not show itself. It hid, like it always did when the guns opened. In the days before the bells, our life settled into a pattern. Stand to, at dawn, watching the faint outline of the hill for movement. Breakfast, if there was any. Black tea, bread like erasers, sometimes tinned meat. Wiring parties and patrols, carrying rations up communication trenches that collapsed when it rained. Sandbags, ladders, barbed wire. Listening to BBC Italian from a battered radio when we could, or to the BBC Polish service when the batteries held out. Hearing Anders' voice once, rough and distant, telling us that we would write Poland's name on this hill. At night, the Germans sent down harassing fire, mortar and machine gun bursts that raked the lower slopes and the town. Sometimes they sent patrols. We heard them in the dark, clinking equipment, muttered German and occasional Italian curses. Sometimes we sent patrols up in return, feeling the ground more than seeing it. Rocks, roots, dead grass. The frontier was not a line, it was a knot. One wet afternoon, a British staff captain came to our dugout with a map case under his arm. He had mud up to his knees, brown mustache wet, a cigarette stuck to his lip. "Listen up, lads," he said in accented polish he'd practiced. "Orders from Corps. Reconnaissance of routes toward Point 593 and Albanita Farm. We'll need your lot for the push." His finger stabbed at the lines on the map pinned to a sandbag wall. "Germans up here fall Schirmger. Good ones. They've turned every rock into a bloody fortress. You go up there, you stick to these draws and dead ground. Stay off the obvious paths. They've got everything registered." He paused, eyes flicking to my face, to Leon's, to WWII's, to Novak's lined forehead. "And if you hear bells," he added, almost as an afterthought, "ignore them. It's shell fragments, railings, some damned acoustic trick. Drove some of our lads barmy last month. You focus on the job in hand, right?" Nobody said anything. His mustache twitched. "Good," he said. "Get some sleep, you poor bastards. You'll need it." That night, in the shelter that smelled of damp earth and socks and tobacco, we lay in our clothes. Rain tapped on the corrugated iron above us. Someone, a few dugouts down, tried to sing a song about LWW and got the words wrong. We heard a mule bray, then a curse, then the crack of a rifle shot. Probably someone putting an animal out of its misery. Point 593, Leon whispered in the dark. What a nice name. Clean. On the map it's a little number. In real life, it's a hillside full of men trying not to die. "We've seen worse," Novak said. "Tobruk Monte Cassino is just rock instead of sand. It has bells instead of flies," WWII said. "If I hear bells," Leon said, "I'm running the other way." We laughed softly. Even Novak smiled in the dark, his teeth a brief pale flash. We did not hear them that night. The second battle for a casino ground on and then faltered. The New Zealanders in the town, the Indians up on the slopes, the Germans refusing to be pushed off every ridge and ruin, the monastery still looming above it all, like a broken tooth. In late March, before the big May offensive, we were rotated back a few kilometers for rest, which meant dry socks, less shelling, and slightly warmer food. It also meant time to think. Rest area was a grove of mutilated olive trees near Mignano. We built bivouacs, out of tarps and branches. A mobile canteen set up, run by British women with red crosses on their arms and accents from London and Birmingham. They served tea out of urns that smelled of metal and hope. On the second evening there, Leon and I sat on ammo boxes with tin mugs between our palms. The sunset turned the wounded mountains pink. The monastery rock was a darker shape against that softness, distant but impossible to ignore. An Italian woman in black, hair bound tight, came along the line with a basket of hard biscuits and a jug of thin wine. She must have been 50, but worry and hunger made it impossible to tell. Her eyes were the color of smoke. She had a boy with her, maybe 12, carrying another basket. "Per eye, soldati," she said. "For the soldiers. From our village. Grazie, signora," Leon said, always polite. He took a biscuit and dipped his head. She gave him a tired smile, then glanced toward the distant rock. The monastery caught the last light, its shattered walls glowing. "You go up there?" she asked. "Soon," I said. She made a little clicking sound with her tongue. "My father worked there," she said. "Before the war. He cleaned the floors. He said you never whistle in the corridors of San Benedetto. It wakes the stones." "Stones sleep?" Leon asked, half teasing. "They sleep until you call them," she said. "The bells are their voices." Her fingers tightened on the jug handle. The night before the first bombs, the bells rang by themselves. No monk in the tower. Father heard it 3 times. The abbot said it was the wind. My father said there was no wind. The next day, the sky fell. The boy beside her shifted, his shoulders hunched. "Mama," he muttered Buster. She touched his hair. "You be careful when you go there," she told me. "The bells do not ring for warning. They ring when it is already done. Already done." I looked at the monastery rock and thought of Stoshek's body dragged out of the wire, the way the bells had cut off mid-stroke. "Maybe the bells will ring for the Germans," Waddick said, trying to lighten it. "Enough Poles have died already." She looked at him, and for a moment there was something like pity in her face. "The bells do not care which uniform," she said. "They ring for names." After rest came orders. We assembled before dawn on the 11th of May. The air was damp and cold. Mist in the valley. Our companies formed up behind the line of olive trees, men buttoning greatcoats, checking ammunition, tightening straps. Artillery batteries behind us were silhouettes of black tubes against a lighter horizon. Novak moved along our squad, tapping shoulders, checking extra bandoliers, he said. "Grenades where you can reach them. Rope ready for the climb. Helmets tight. If you step on a mine, step hard so it finishes the job." "Very encouraging, Sergeant," Leon said. "You want lies? Go to the chaplain," Novak replied. "He's over there, selling indulgences." But there was a twist of affection in his voice. The chaplain, Father Antoni, was indeed nearby, moving along the line with his stole over his battle dress, giving hurried blessings and jokes in equal measure. He was small, with a broad face and eyes that missed nothing. He reached us and made the sign of the cross in the air. "Panawi," he said. "You're going to climb a hill where men have been climbing toward God for 1,000 years. Try not to meet him tonight. I still owe you a mass for Easter. Will you hear us if we confess from halfway up?" Zalewski asked. "Shout loud," Father Antoni said, "but not during German machine gun bursts. He prefers clarity." We laughed, the kind of laugh that has its back to a wall. Then the artillery opened. It was not like the sporadic shelling we were used to. This was a wall of sound. Guns from Garigano to beyond the Rapido, British, Polish, Indian, French, all firing. The sky above the valley became a constant flicker. The ground shook under our boots. The smell of cordite rolled over us like a tide. We stepped off in waves, threading through the vineyards and stone terraces toward our jumping-off points. Cassino Town, or what was left of it, was a smoldering heap to our right, dark against the flashes. Ahead, the slopes rose, already torn by previous battles. Names floated in my head. Point 593, Albanita, the Phantom Ridge, halfway to the base of the hill. In the pauses between artillery salvos, I heard them. Bells. Slow. 4 strokes. A pause that felt like someone drawing breath. For more. Even over that barrage, even with blood pounding in my ears, I heard them. They did not waver. They were not buried under echo. They cut through like cold iron through cloth. Leon stumbled beside me. "You hear that?" he yelled, leaning close, breath white in the night air. "Just keep moving," Novak shouted back, eyes on the ground, one foot, then the other. But he was gripping his rosary so hard, his knuckles were white. We crossed the start line and began to climb. The hillside was a maze of shattered terraces, mule tracks, shell holes, craters, broken olive trees. The soil was slick under our boots, clay and blood and rain mixed into a treacherous paste. Machine gun bullets snapped overhead, seeking. Flares rose, washing the slope in harsh white light, then dropping, leaving patches of darkness that felt thicker than before. The artillery curtain crept up the hillside ahead of us, explosions marching. Each blast lit the monastery rock above like a flash photograph. Broken walls, a ruined tower, a silhouette of arches against the glare. The bells did not match the flashes. They rang in their own time. 4. Pause. 4. Men slipped. Someone went down, crying out. Someone else kept climbing and didn't realize his boot had stepped on another man's hand. We reached a shallow depression, the map called a gully, and the men called the bloody ditch. Novak flung up his hand. "Down," he yelled. "Take cover." We dropped, pressing against the wet earth. Tracers stitched the air above. Dirt spattered our helmets. Somewhere a man was yelling in German, the guttural commands faint under the blasts, but unmistakable. I forced my breath in and out. My hands were numb. My rifle was wet. The bells kept ringing. In that shallow shelter, time stretched. Present tense took over. The shells fall. The air is a solid, constant roar. A flare pops overhead, turning faces into masks, whites of eyes glowing, teeth shining. Who are they ringing for? Leon's voice is a shout close to my ear. He is curled on his side, his radio set a dark hump on his back, his glasses speckled with mud. Who is dead already? No one if you keep your head down. Novak snaps. Mazur, get that set into the lee. We'll need it. Leon nods. He crawls, dragging the radio, fumbling for the handset. A bullet snaps into the earth, where his head was a heartbeat ago. He flinches, but keeps moving. There is a sharp, metallic clang, very close. Not the soft thud of a mortar, not the crack of a rifle. Like a small bell hit by a hammer. I twist my head. By my boot, half buried in the mud, is a curved piece of metal, green with age, edges jagged. It is part of a bell. The shape is unmistakable. On the curve there is a fragment of an inscription, Benedek. As I stare, another shell lands higher up, showering more earth. The fragment shifts, slides an inch, and for a moment I hear a clear, tiny ring from it, perfectly in time with the deep toll from the unseen tower above. Yannick. Novak snaps. Move. We go on my count. He raises his hand. 3 fingers. 2. 1. We scramble out of the ditch, lungs burning, legs heavy. We run crooked, zigzagging, feeling for shells and bullets with our skin. The monastery above flickers in and out of existence with each explosion. Somewhere behind us, at the base of the slope, the chaplain's voice rises in a snatch of Latin over the roar. Ikian, Eternum Dona, Ace. The bells interrupt him. For strokes. Pause. For they sound patient. We reach a stone wall, battered but still standing waist high. We throw ourselves behind it. Men tumble in beside me, breathing in harsh gasps. Someone vomits into the mud. Someone laughs hysterically and can't stop, until Novak hits him hard across the helmet with an open palm. Focus, he says. We're almost at Albanita. We hold here until first light. Then we move again. Almost Waddick mutters, leaning his huge back against the stones. His face is streaked with mud, his eyes wide. Monastery's right there. He jerks his chin upward. For a moment, the smoke thins. The monastery sits above us, perhaps 600 meters higher, like a broken crown. A flash of lightning far off outlines its jagged profile. No belfry stands. The tower that once housed the bells is a pile of rubble, black against the sky. The bells ring anyway. That is the first supernatural beat. It can still be explained: sound carrying, imagination, nerves. So we tell ourselves. We spend the night pressed against that wall, taking turns to fire at muzzle flashes above, flinching at shells. Rain drizzles, then stops. The ground sucks at our boots. Rats move in the rubble, nosing at fallen men. Near dawn, there is a lull. Only the occasional crack of a rifle, the distant mutter of guns in the valley. Our ears ring with the aftershock of so much noise. The bells are silent. Leon sits with his back to the wall, the radio handset dangling from his fingers. He has pulled out his little notebook. The cover is soft from use, the corners dog-eared. "What are you writing now?" I ask, voice hoarse. "Names," he says. He turns the notebook so I can see. There, in his cramped handwriting, is a list. Some names I know: Corporal Stashek, killed in the wire; Private Coel, had gone, in Ortona. A few British surnames with question marks. Above them, in a fresh column, new entries, names of our squad, our company, mine, his, Novak's, Wadek's. "Why would you do that now?" I ask. The question comes out sharper than I mean. "In case someone finds it," he says, shrugging. "No one will remember who was here. The officers will. We won't be in any big history." He keeps his pencil moving. "This is our own Book of the Dead. Maybe it will confuse the bells." "You're mad," Wadek says, but there is nervousness in his laugh. Leon smiles briefly. "Maybe if our names are already written, they'll leave us alone," he says. Novak reaches over and snatches the notebook from his hand. His fingers are quick despite the cold. "Listen to yourself," he says. "You're letting some stories from old men and Indians get into your head." "Give it back," Leon says, rising a little. Novak's eyes flick down to the open page. His brow furrows. Then his face goes oddly blank. "What?" Leon demands. He grabs for the notebook. Novak holds it out, suddenly eager to be rid of it. Leon takes it. His hands shake. He stares at the open page. I lean in. At the very bottom of the list, beneath all our names, there is another line. The writing is Leon's, no doubt. The same cramped letters. Masur, Leone, menos 11 B, 44 to 37. The last part is underlined twice. "What's today's date?" he asks, voice thin. 11th of May, I say. He licks his lips. "What time is it?" Novak looks at his watch. The luminous hands glow faintly. 0 to 37, he says, after a moment. "Why?" Leon's breath hitches. He laughs, a choked sound. "It's a joke," he says. "A stupid joke. I don't remember writing that." He closes the notebook with a snap and shoves it back into his pocket. Sleep deprivation. That's all. No one answers. We all heard the bells stop a few minutes before, exactly as he opened the notebook. Dawn comes pale and cold. The barrage starts again, rolling over our heads toward German positions. We move out, toward Albanita, toward point 593, toward the Monastery rock. That day is fire and stone, present tense again, because there is no past when you are inside something like that. We climb, we slip, we are shot at from above by men we cannot see. We shoot back at muzzle flashes and shadows in the outlines of helmets behind rocks. Our machine gunners set up behind boulders and rattle away until barrels glow. Mortars thump and cough behind us, sending bombs toward the terraces ahead. A runner arrives, face gray with exhaustion. "Order from battalion," he gasps. "Push to the next terrace. Do not stop. The Kiwis are attacking on your right. You must keep up." We move. A man goes down beside me without a sound, just a sudden collapse, as if his strings had been cut. Blood seeps into the stones. "Help him," someone shouts. 2 stretcher-bearers crawl forward. Before they reach him, the bells begin again. 4 strokes. Pause. 4. One of the stretcher-bearers, A skinny boy from Poznań stops and looks up, eyes wide. A bullet hits him in the temple. He falls on top of the wounded man. The stained stretcher slides down the slope a little. We do not try to move them again. At midday, after what feels like a year compressed into hours, we reach the ruins of Albanita Farm, or what is left of it. Walls knee-high, a few charred posts, skeletons of trees. The place smells of burned wood, manure, and long-soured wine. German paratroopers are there, dug into holes in the ground and behind piled stones. They wear mottled camouflage smocks, steel helmets with netting. Their faces are tired and hard. Their fire is accurate. We fight them in and around those ruins. Grenades, bayonets, close-range bursts. I see a German no older than me raise his hands and mouth, something I think it is nix, Shagon, and then a shell lands between us. And when I blink the smoke away, he is missing from the waist down. The bells ring steadily through it, as if someone far away is keeping meticulous time. Second supernatural beat. After an hour, maybe two, the Germans fall back to higher terraces. We hold Albanita, such as it is. Our company is half strength. Bodies lie everywhere, in British and Polish and German uniforms, sprawled in the mud and hair and stone. We take cover in a shallow dugout that might once have been a wine cellar. The roof is low, made of planks scavenged from somewhere. The walls sweat damp. In one corner, a pile of greenish metal curves, covered in dust. Leon wipes his glasses again and sits down hard. If those bells were metal, he says, they've melted 20 times over. Forget the bells, Novak says. His voice is strained. He has a bandage around his upper arm, blood seeping through. Heavier things to worry about. Ammunition, water. If the British artillery overshoots and blows us all, too, God. WWII crouches near the greenish pile, curiosity tugging at him even now. He reaches out and brushes away the dust. Under his fingers, letters emerge. Latin, carved deep. Nobilis, S-A-N-C-T-I. Look at this, he says. Pieces of the old monastery. His hand closes around a smaller fragment, the size of a dinner plate, curved like a section of bell. He lifts it. It is heavier than it looks. A jagged edge has an old patina of rust, but the center is smooth, almost polished. A faint relief of a robed figure with arms spread covers part of it. As he tilts it, it catches a stray shaft of light from the doorway. For a heartbeat, the dugout fills with a sharp, clear chime, nothing like the deep toll from above. It is like a glass rod tapped against crystal. The sound slices through our skulls. We all freeze. Put it down, Novak says. Flat. WWII swallows. Slowly, he lowers the fragment to the ground. The chime fades. Just resonance, Leon says. His voice is too fast. Vibration, shells, sound waves. My physics teacher would. The bells above interrupt him. 4 strokes. Pause. 4. Something breaks in him then. He laughs. High. A little hysterical. All right, he says. Fine. Fine. Let's take a poll. Who thinks I wrote my own death time as a joke last night? Show of hands. No one raises a hand. He presses his palms to his eyes. Maybe I have second sight, he says. Maybe I'm already dead, and I just haven't got the memo yet. Novak reaches out and grips his shoulder. His hand is firm. You're not dead until I say you are, he says. And I'm far too stubborn to let some monastery tell me what to do. Got it? Leon nods. A quick jerk. Got it, he says. Sorry, I'm tired. We are all tired. The kind of tired that lives in bone. In the afternoon, German counterattacks come down from point 593. Dark shapes moving through smoke and scrub, shouting horror, as if it is still 1940 and they are invincible. We beat them off with rifle fire and grenades, our shoulders bruised from recoil. The hillside around Albanita is a graveyard of craters and blood and twisted bodies. In one pause between attacks, a German voice calls out in accented Italian from somewhere above Polaki. It shouts, Polish non sparare, do not shoot. Interpreters shout back. There is brief, Tense exchange. A German Feldwebel comes down, hands raised, helmet off, his hair slick with sweat. He has sharp cheekbones, a nose broken twice, eyes like chips of ice. He wears the green of the Fallschirmjäger and a small metal badge of a diving eagle on his breast pocket. He steps into our ruined farm with exaggerated care. Our rifles track him. He stops where we indicate. "What do you want?" Novak asks. In German that is rough but serviceable. "Truce to collect wounded," the Feldwebel says. His voice is hoarse. "Yours and ours." Novak hesitates. Then he nods. 5 minutes, he says. "No more. And if anyone tries to move up while we carry, we shoot." The Feldwebel nods. "Understood." His gaze flicks past Novak to the greenish fragments stacked in the corner. His face tightens. "You hear them too, then," he says, low. "Hear what?" Leon asks. The German glances toward the Monastery rock. It is hidden in cloud, but we all know exactly where it is. "The bells," he says. We say nothing. "They rang yesterday," he continues. "We were in our holes, cleaning weapons, cursing your artillery. No metal left up there to ring, but still, they rang. 4 and 4 and 4. He swallows. His Adam's apple jumps. "We lost 3 men that afternoon. They were already dead, I think, when the bells started. They just took a while to lie down." "What are you talking about?" Novak asks. The Feldwebel looks at him, and there is something brittle behind his eyes. "One of them," he says, "was hit in the chest. A big piece. No bandages left, so we stuffed rags in the hole, gave him morphine, told him to sleep. He kept opening his eyes and saying his wife's name. His jaw clenches. Hours later, he gets up, walks to the edge of the hole, stands there, looking toward the monastery. The bells are ringing. He salutes. The German's hand lifts in a small, involuntary gesture. Then he falls. Dead. Rigor already in his fingers. Like he had been dead all day, and only just realized. Second beat becomes harder to explain. "Shell shock," Leon says, but the word falls flat. The Feldwebel shakes his head. "You Poles believe in saints," he says. "Ask your priest what it means when bells ring for men who stand and walk and fire their rifles. Maybe it means they'll be dead soon," WWII says. "Then your bells are efficient," the German replies. "They do not waste iron on the living." The truce passes. We carry bodies, warm ones, cold ones, ones that do not yet know which they are. We step carefully around the greenish fragments. That night, the Germans try again. They come in under cover of a sudden fog, thick and clammy. The bells ring steadily now, unlinked from any visible pattern of attack or shelling. They are a baseline under the chaos. Somewhere between midnight and 3, as we fight among rocks and root stumps, Leon vanishes. I notice only when things quiet for a moment. The fog has thinned. A lighter patch in the sky suggests the moon. The bells, for once, are silent. "Where's Mazor?" I ask, scanning the ruined farm. "Radio's here," WWII says, hand on the set. "He was right here a minute ago." We shout his name. "Leon Mazur, where are you?" No answer, just the crackle of the set. Some British voice, trying to cut through static, and the far-off thump of guns. Then, faintly, from up the slope, toward a line of blasted trees, we hear singing. It is a football chant, from before the war. Krakowia's Leon used to sing it quietly when he thought no one noticed. Now his voice carries, thin and reedy, through the mist. "Kurzatwars," Novak swears. The idiot's gone forward. We follow the sound, up past a boulder that looks like a seated man, around a crater, over a low wall of stones. The mist swirls, shapes and shadows. "Leon," I shout, "get back here, you madmen." The singing stops. Silence. Then the bells start. 4 strokes. Pause. 4. We crest a slight rise. On the other side, in a shallow hollow, there are bodies, Polish, German, twisted together like some obscene embrace. Leon lies among them, on his back. His eyes are open. His glasses are gone. There is a wound in his chest, small and neat, just under the left clavicle. No blood now. Whatever there was has soaked into his tunic. His right hand is raised, fingers curled as if he had been holding something. His lips are parted. I half expect the chant to spill out again. Jesus, I whisper. Novak drops to his knees beside him. He fumbles for a pulse, though from the color of the skin we know. He lowers the hand gently. Something crinkles. The hand had been clutching his notebook. It falls from his fingers, flops open on his chest. The same list of names. Ours. His. Under his own name. The line he had shown us earlier. Masur Leo N. Menozon CMB. 44 to 37. It is now almost 3 in the morning. Time of death, Novak mutters, half to himself. I look at my watch. Luminous hands. 3:02. What did we learn from our physics teacher, Leon? I say. That's a margin of error of 25 minutes. No one laughs. We carry him back under intermittent fire. As we lift him, his head lolls, and for a moment I think I see something trapped between his teeth, like a sliver of metal. Then his jaw sags, and it falls into his mouth, disappears. Later, when we lay him with the others, I check. There is nothing. The bells ring all the way down to Albanita. As we lay him on a piece of tarp, they stop, mid-strike, again. Third beat. Now, there is no honest way to call it coincidence. By the time dawn comes again, we are ghosts moving among ghosts. Our company is a third of what it was. The German positions above still spit fire. The monastery rock looms, closer but not close enough. Command decides there will be no heroic rush to the top this day. We hold what we have taken and pray the line does not break under counterattack. They move us slightly back from the hottest point, to a shallow gully, where we can dig in. The ground is full of roots and stones. Shovels strike metal more than soil. Each time they do, we flinch, waiting for that sharp chime. In the lull, we bury Leon and the others we can reach. We cannot dig deep graves, just enough to cover bodies and mark them with stones and rifle stocks. Father Antoni says what he can remember of the prayers, voice shaking with exhaustion. As he sprinkles holy water from a dented bottle onto the piled earth over Leon, the bells ring once, singular, a single stroke, no more. We stand very still until it fades. Strange place for Providence, Novak mutters, but his eyes are wet. In the days that follow, the battle grinds on. Other units pass through. More Poles, Gurkhas with their kukris, British infantry with their sand-colored helmets. We hear stories, as we always do. They say, a Gurkha patrol found a German dugout full of men sitting as if at a table, hands folded, eyes closed. Every one of them dead, no wounds. The only sound in the hole was the echo of bells. They say an artillery forward observer up near Snake's-Head Ridge reported hearing bells in his telephone line, clear as if someone had wired the monastery into the system. When he tried to adjust his headset, a shell took him and the observation post away. They say, a mule carrying mortar bombs up one of the steeper paths stopped, listened, brayed once in fear, then lay down and died. Heart stopped, no visible injury. The bells had rung just before. Stories accumulate like snow. We live long enough to see the offensive shift. The French on our flank push through the Arunchi mountains. The Germans begin to feel pressure from several sides. Orders come down. One more big push. We are to assault the approaches to the monastery itself. By now, the bells are part of the landscape. Sometimes they ring at dusk, sometimes at noon, sometimes not for a day, and everyone is nervous, waiting for them. The British staff stop telling us to ignore them. The Gurkhas make small signs with their hands when they hear them, gestures they do not explain. The Indian sepoys mutter prayers to gods far from this hill. In a ruined building used as a battalion HQ, a clerk from Warsaw sits at a field table, typing casualty lists on a battered machine. The click-clack is a steady accompaniment to the thump of guns. As each page is filled, he sets it aside, face blank. I walk past one day, sent with a message from company. The clerk's fingers are stained with ink. There is a smear on his cheek. He looks older than he is. On the table beside him lies a leather-bound ledger. It is open to a page with neat columns of names in Polish and English. Someone has written at the top, in careful script, Monte Cassino, Pelaglii, Zaganini, fallen and missing. Where did you get the book? I ask him. Found it in the ruins of a rectory down the valley, he says. It was blank. Thought we might as well make our own register. Germans burned the monasteries. Someone has to remember. As he speaks, the bells begin. 4 strokes. Pause 4. Without thinking, he looks down at the page he is typing. The last name he has just finished sits there, letters still wet. Kafiakowski, Jan, he reads aloud. My stomach goes cold. Don't type that, I say. He looks up, startled. It's orders, he says. Preemptive list, they want it ready. Battalion sent down probable casualties. The doctor will adjust after. It's for the cemeteries. Saves time. I lean over the table. There it is. My name, my number, my unit. Next to it, a blank space where someone will write a date later. My chest feels tight. Cross it out, I say. He hesitates. I cross it out, I repeat. He picks up his pen. The nib hovers over the line. The bells ring a single, stubborn stroke. He flinches. Ink blotting. Fine, he says, and scratches a heavy line through my name. There. Now go back to your platoon. I'm behind as it is. I leave. As I step out into the ruined street, a shell lands 2 houses down. The blast picks me up and throws me against a wall. My ears ring. Dust fills the air. When the dust settles, I find that I have a piece of stone embedded in the thick leather of my boot, just above the ankle. It has punched through, but stopped in the laces. My foot has a bruise that will go purple tomorrow, but the bone is whole. The stone is smooth on one side, with a faint trace of carved letters. Amen. The bells do not ring again that hour. Act 4 is fallout. The offensive continues. On the 17th of May, we receive word. The Germans are withdrawing from the monastery. Our course is to take it. The monastery rock, which has hung over us like a judgment, is suddenly a destination. Our company is a ragged thing by then, patched with replacements, held together by habit and spite. Father Antoni looks like he has not slept in a week. His beard has stubble now, his collar perpetually undone. He has buried too many men to remember all their names, but he tries. We are ordered to move up through the ruins we have already bled over. Albanita is a charred memory. The path winds past, shockingly fresh graves, little mounds with helmets on sticks. Some have names scratched on wood, some do not. No bells ring as we climb. The silence is worse. We pass a spot where a week ago Leon had joked about physics and fate. Now it is just another scrape of earth. I look for any trace of him. There is none. The ground does not care whose blood it drinks. Higher up, we find a German position, abandoned in a hurry. There are tin cans, blankets, a playing card with a woman's face, a copy of a prayer book with pages torn out to roll cigarettes. On one wall of the dugout, someone has scratched words in German, with a knifed point. Die Glocken, Ruffen ans Alley. The bells call us all. They had the same stories, I say. Of course they did, Novak replies. They died in the same mud. Near the crest, Father Antoni slows, breathing hard. He stops to rest a hand on a boulder. On its face, worn by centuries of weather, there is a shallow carved line, half-earsed. It could be Latin, it could be some older tongue. It could just be the way the stone cracked when it cooled thousands of years ago. Once this was a Roman temple, he says, not as a sermon, just as a fact. Before that, who knows? Men have been bringing their dead up here longer than Christ has been on a cross. It is a good place for bells. The path narrows. The air is colder. The rubble is thicker. The monastery walls loom, fractured but still imposing, windows like empty eye sockets. We step through a breach, blasted by bombs and artillery. Inside, there is no sacred hush. There is dust, the smell of burned wood and old plaster, the faint stink of men who have lived and bled here. Broken columns lie like fallen trees. Shards of stained glass glitter in the debris like frozen blood. Bits of fresco cling stubbornly to walls. Fragments of saints' eyes, looking down in mute surprise. No Germans shoot at us. Their positions are empty. Shell casings and spent ration tins, the only evidence. Somewhere below, they are falling back toward the Hitler line, leaving us this pile of stones. We move cautiously, rifles ready, boots crunching. The place feels full, though there are few bodies here, as if air itself remembers. Then we hear it, not the deep bells we have known these past weeks, but something else. A faint, irregular clinking, like metal gently knocking. We follow the sound through a cloister. The arches are broken, but the pattern is still there. A courtyard open to the sky has a crater in its center, filled with water. The surface shivers with each step we take. At the far end of the courtyard, a squat tower leans, its top half sheared away. Inside, stair steps of worn stone spiral up into shadow. The belfry Father Antoni breathes. We climb, our boots scuff. Bits of mortar fall. The smell of dust gets into our mouths. Halfway up, the sound grows louder. Not clinking, ringing, but small, like a handbell. At the top, we emerge into the space where the bells once hung. There are no bells. Chains dangle from the beams, broken ends rusted. Where huge bronze shapes once swung, there is only air and the suggestion of circles on the floor where their weight once hit. Yet the sound is here, clear. A small bell, ringing and ringing, as if swung by an invisible hand. On the floor, in the center of the empty space, lies a broken piece of bronze. Perhaps half a bell, jagged-edged. Its outer surface is blackened. Its inner surface is smooth, inscribed with letters I cannot fully read. Benedictus qui venit. The rest is lost in the break. The piece rocks gently, as if someone has just kicked it. With each sway, it rings. No one is touching it. We stand in a circle around it. The hair on my arms is standing. Wind, Wodek says, but there is no wind. The air in the belfry is still, heavy. Dust motes hang like slow snow. Resonance, whispers a voice in my memory. Leon's physics teacher. I step closer. My boot nudges a smaller fragment, and it shifts, making a tiny ping. The larger piece does not seem to take notice. It keeps rocking. As it moves, I see lines carved inside it that I had missed, not Latin numbers. Columns of them, scratched in by a finer tool after the casting, dates and names. Some are worn nearly smooth, others are sharp. At the top of one column, near where the fragment is broken, I glimpse 15-244, Monaci, Chivali, monks, civilians. Lower down, 15-344, Gurkha, Indian. Below that, 24-344. Kiwi. My eyes track farther. Newer scratches are near the intact edge. The letters are crude, but legible. 11V-44, Palaki Mazur, Leon. The last part is underlined twice. A chill goes through my gut. Sergeant, I say. You should see this. He steps up beside me. His face goes rigid. This is not possible, he says. Father Antoni licks his lips. His gaze moves over the column. There are other names. German surnames. British. Italian. Some I recognize. Some I do not. The dates run forward toward today. Near the bottom, freshly cut, the scratch is still bright. There is another line. 18-V44, Palaki space, where a name might go. It is blank after that. The fragment sways, ringing steadily. With each ring, the letters seem to catch the light differently. Don't write anything, I say quickly. No one moves. We stand there, 5 men in battle dress, dirty and tired, in a broken monastery belfry, watching a piece of old metal rock back and forth, as if stirred by breath we cannot feel. Then the bells, the big ones, the ones we have heard for weeks begin, not from here, from everywhere. The sound comes up through the stones under our boots, through the walls, through our bones. It is as if the whole monastery has become a bell. 4 strokes, pause, 4. Tiny cracks appear along the edge of the fragment. With each ring they lengthen. Metal flakes off in glittering dust. Back, Father Antoni says. Away from it. We step back. The fragment gives a final, small swing. The bell note hangs in the air. Then the metal crumbles. Not in big chunks, but as if it ages 100 years in a second. It goes from solid to a sagging, collapsing shape to a heap of greenish dust on the floor. The sound lingers long after the metal is gone. No one speaks. Finally, Novak clears his throat. We should report this to Corps HQ, he says. They'll want to. No. Report what? Father Antoni asks quietly. That we saw a broken bell ring and a list of names etched where no one could have etched them. That the dead have their own ledger. He kneels by the dust, hesitates. Then, carefully, he dips a finger in and makes the sign of the cross on his chest with it. The dust leaves a faint green line on his dull khaki. I will say, he goes on, that the bells have stopped. He tilts his head. They have. For the first time since that day in the vineyard, there is no tolling, no chime. Just the distant grumble of artillery moving farther north, toward the next line, the next hill. Maybe the book is full, Wadek says. Father Antoni gives him a look that could be annoyance or mercy. Books can always take more names, he says. That is why God invented margins. But his voice lacks its usual humor. We leave the belfry. There is much to do, positions to secure, reports to file, flags to raise. A Polish patrol finds a white cloth in a drawer in some half-collapsed sacristy and runs it up on a splintered pole over the ruins. Someone takes a photograph, men lined up under the broken arches, helmets off, beside the ragged banner. In the picture, later, when it is developed and passed around, a faint shape can be seen in one of the shattered windows behind us. It looks, if you stare long enough, like a cluster of bells hanging where there are none. Some say it is just the way light fell on the stones. The war moves on. After Cassino, we go north. The Gothic line, the valleys and Apennines. Some of us die there. Some live. Time becomes numbers on calendars, markers on roads. I do not hear bells again for a long time. Years pass. The world forgets some things and argues about others. New wars, new ruins. I end up in a city that is not mine, with a job that involves a desk and a pen instead of a rifle. Sometimes, when a tram goes past with a certain screech of its wheels, I feel my palms prickle. One autumn, long after, I go back. Monte Cassino has a paved road now, wide enough for buses of tourists. The slopes we climbed under shell fire are cut by switchbacks. There is a car park where Albanita once stood. Signs with arrows point to Abbasia and Cimitero Polacco. The sky is clear and hard blue. The wind smells of dry grass and exhaust fumes. The monastery has been rebuilt. White walls, clean arches, new frescoes. The austerity of the stones I remember has been smoothed into something softer, more inviting. There is a gift shop where you can buy postcards and small bottles of liqueur with St. Benedict's face. Inside, the floors shine, the air is cool, and smells of wax and incense. A monk in a black habit nods as people file past a painting of the bombing. He speaks in slow Italian about destruction and rebirth. I stand on the edge of the cloister and listen. The bells are visible now, new bronze in the tower. Visitors pause under them, some putting hands to ears when they ring the Angelus. The sound is rich and pleasant. It does not make my teeth hurt. Down the slope, among trimmed cypresses, lies the Polish cemetery. White crosses in neat rows, each with a name and a date. Leon is there. So is Novak, who did not make it past the Adriatic. So are many others. I walk the rows until my legs ache. Then I sit on a low wall and look back up at the monastery. The sun is behind it, throwing its facade into shadow. Somewhere in the town below, a church bell rings the hour. In the car park, A bus reverses with an annoying beep. A child laughs. Under all that, very faint, almost under the threshold of hearing, I catch another sound. 4 slow strokes. Pause. 4. No one else seems to hear it. People continue to take photographs, to point, to talk. On the nearest cross, the name is worn a little by weather. Mazur, Leon. The date is still sharp. 11 V. 44. Physics, I say quietly, to the stone. Resonance, shell shock, wind. The air does not argue. In the rebuilt tower, the new bells toll for the hour. Their notes are higher, friendlier. They do not quite cover the other sound. Not for me. If you come here as a tourist, you will hear only the new bells. If you hear anything, you will walk on paved paths, read plaques, take pictures of white marble against blue sky. You will drink coffee at a cafe that serves cake. You will shake your head over casualty figures carved into stone. But if you stay too long by the graves when the light goes, if you linger on the steps of the monastery when the last bus has driven down, you may notice the ground humming. You may feel an old, slow toll in your bones. 4 strokes. Pause. 4. That will be for someone whose name was written here long ago, whose footsteps are already walking the hill, though his boots may still be clean. If you want to hear more stories that stay with you after the lights go out, stay close. Monte Cassino. May 1944. 3rd Carpathian Rifles, 2 polished cores, and all the others whose bells still ring in stone.